Dude. This is not funny. It's way too long. Is this German?
Yeah. It might even be Master Plan.
What I have to say is that German. Once I heard that, yeah, I'm like, that's him. He's just such a polite German dude. I hate that I watched that interview.
We can finally move on to the main story. You can probably see this coming considering the way we've talked about the confidants in the game, but the main story also drops the ball, especially in the back half of the game. This is a reoccurring theme with Persona 5, and is by far the most disappointing thing it does. The story starts out perfectly fine and sets up a lot of cool, dark ideas for the game to tackle, but as more and more is revealed, the game can't seem to keep track with its own rules and results in an unsatisfying mess. New ideas and stories are still being introduced by the end of the game, while at the same time, just as many threads keep going completely.
No, that was not introduced. It was introduced within in Confidant. And the number one, as soon as you open up the game, the butterfly flies by and goes, "Health in me." It's been there.
That's actually the closing of that plot thread that was set up in the beginning of the game.
Ignored or are dropped. Let's start at the beginning when the game is still filled with promise and before it starts tripping over itself. The first arc of the game revolves around Kamoshida, the evil volleyball coach we
legit one of the best.
Confidant.
It could have just been the game.
To the game, and
I'd
a lot
have been
of it
fine.
consists of setting up the world and the characters we'll be following. We learn that Joker was involved in an incident where he tried to defend a woman from a drunk guy, but the drunkard was a powerful politician and accuses Joker of hurting him, causing him to be expelled and having to go to stay with Sojiro for a year while under probation. At the school, rumors of Joker being a violent kid have already spread, and we get to see how much of a slimy shitbag Kamoshida is. Joker also befriends Ryuji, since they are both outcasts and happen to accidentally wander into the metaverse together. There they meet Morgana, who teaches them that when humans have their desires warped enough, they spawn a palace, which is the dungeons themed around their person's delusions, which they are the rulers in their mind. The dungeons are presided over by a
Holy stop with this exposition, dude!
Do we know Persona 5 or no? If we do, this is just extra stuff. You could yada yada this. New kid comes to school. He's hated. Meets up with Ryuji. Goes to Mementos. Sees Morgana. Fights Kamoshida.
This video is about explaining why it's style over substance. So you can go, for anybody that doesn't play Persona, here's some quick stuff. The confidants, here's what happens there. Because this is going to be important to what I say later on. So here's the quick rundown of all of them, blah, 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 blah. Not 8 minutes dedicated and not giving us the entire game of Persona word for word synopsises.
And adding nothing to it until you do. It's like a paragraph of just synopsis and then like another paragraph of explaining why it's bad.
Dungeons are presided
Intersperse
over by
those
a shadow
two.
self who represents the person's true
We know.
self. However, if they reach the deepest part of a palace and steal the owner's treasure, that person
If
will
you
have a change.
2.5 hours in talking about characters that you don't know and don't care about, listening to why this dude says that they're bad, you're done. You're not going to start explaining, oh, here's how palaces work, when you talk all about palaces interspersed within the confidants part. Who are you explaining this for?
Who is
this part
this
in particular. This part of you need to get the treasure in order to change the... We know, and the people that don't know, they ain't watching this.
It's been too long. Why would they keep going?
It's been too long of characters that they don't know.
And confess their crimes in reality. To access a palace, they need to know
Jesus!
who the owner is, where the palace is, and what the owner thinks of it as. So in Kamoshida's case, he is the owner, the school is the palace, and he thinks of it as a castle, where he rules it as a king, having total control of every student inside. In this castle, we see him torturing students, especially those on the volleyball team, and also gets involved in this since she is close to Kamoshida because of her friend Shiho, who is on the volleyball team. In order to secure Shiho's position on the starting roster, Anne spends time with Kamoshida after school, and things eventually eventually escalate where he blackmails her for sex. Not being able to handle the abuse anymore, Shiho attempts suicide by jumping off the school's roof, which is the event that propels Anne to joining the party. This also sends Ryuji into a frenzy, and in a confrontation in Kamoshida's office, he threatens to expel both of you and Mishima. After being threatened with expulsion and having had enough of his rule over the school, your group decides to confront him in his palace since it's the only thing they can do. The thing about Kamoshida is that he's actually a great villain, and it's what makes the game have a great first impression. When someone thinks back to Persona 5, they remember the Kamoshida arc, not the specifics of a...
Who are you talking about? Who is this they? When people think back to Persona 5, they think of Kamoshida. Who are you basing this on, sir? Thank you for giving the opinions of these nebulous, potentially fake people.
Bruh, I think so much of the casino level. I love that.
Thank you for giving me the opinions of people that don't exist. I really needed to hear that.
Arc, not the specifics of a character's S-Link. The problem is that he's also by far the best villain in the game, since they only get weaker from here on out. Kamoshida has a direct impact on the lives of the main characters, since he's in a position of power over them at school, and they confront him nearly...
Yes, they can get expelled, but then the very next one, Madarame, what was his threat? Oh, call the police because you broke into my house. That has a direct effect over both our party members and Yusuke. Go to jail because of all these drugs has a direct effect for all of our party members. Marry this dude. Man, less so, but Haru doesn't want to. And Sai.
Every single day, enduring his abuse, keeping quiet about it, and walking on eggshells when around him. We get to see the way Kamoshida acts in real life and how others react to him. There's always this looming dread and tension in the air as you walk around the school's hallways where you can bump into...
Why is Kamoshida allowed to be comically evil, but then it's also a negative that all of the adults are comically evil?
Because you like this one.
Yeah, that's all it is.
Into him, or on your way to school where he's waiting for you at the entrance gate. It always reminds you that he's the top dog and whatever he says goes. Unlike all the other villains, which we don't quite get the same level of intimacy as...
Because they're off on the site. This dude is literally in your school, which is half of your time in Persona games. Spent in school, well, a third. Spent in school, spent in after school activities, S-Links and all that stuff, and spent in whatever that, Mementos is.
And what does he do? All of his actions inside of the school can be classified as menacing, as threatening, and that's all it is. It's just a never-ending barrage of threatening. So it's the same, and you had a problem with that with the openings of the Confidants, of just repetition.
Do with Kamoshida and just get the feeling of how much of a fucking bastard he is. He barely even tries to hide his true nature, since he knows that he has more sway than anyone else in the school, and we see him be hostile to Joker every chance he gets. He's the one that spread the rumors about your past, before you even get to school, and as soon as he finds an excuse to, he threatens you with expulsion. You've only barely started your adventure, and he's already trying to end it. We also know that he's the one who broke Ryuji's legs, and attempted to rape Anne while driving her best friend to suicide, and regularly beats Mishima. The stakes aren't just high, they're incredibly personal. Kamoshida's dungeon is also one of the best in the game, with everything fitting the medieval castle theme. Every new room you visit is clearly an analog to the location in the school. The castle's dungeon and the cells are the classrooms, the church is the school's gym where he is worshipped, the castle's library is the school library, except it's filled with books about how great Kamoshida is and how stupid the students are. Even the enemies you encounter fit the theme of the castle and its perverted owner. Every dungeon has a small pool of enemies presented in it.
How does the jack-o'-lantern... You showed one example and went, yep, all the personas... I don't think you said all. I think you said just the personas.
In the castle and its perverted... How stupid the students are. Even the enemies you encounter fit the theme of the castle and its perverted owner.
I think all the enemies of all the castles or all the palaces fit their owner in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, but he likes this one.
Every dungeon has a small pool of enemies presented in it, but this one has by far the best theming. Pixie and Silky are creatures from fantasy settings and represent the girls Kamoshida preys on.
No,
they don't.
That's not how it goes, bro.
No.
Stop it.
This is silly.
Silly.
Jack-o'-lantern is a court jester, Barrett...
Oh, come on,
Dude.
The Jacks have been in all Persona games. They're just... They're basically the slimes of this. Slimes of Dragon Quest. They're the slimes of this.
Low-level enemies, pop 'em in, get it done.
A lantern is a court jester. Barrett and Elgor are medieval knights, like the teachers that protect Kamoshida and his actions, and Incubus and Succubus are devils that represent his perversion. The decorations around the palace are also fitting.
Incubus and Succubus has been in all of the Persona games.
No, but he likes this one. No, that's
Consisting
all that
mostly of
matters.
statues and paintings showing off Kamoshida and the things that he's into. Since this is supposed to be a tutorial dungeon, teaching the player the basic mechanics of the game, the puzzle design here is really basic and not very noteworthy. There is some over-reliance on the Joker vision to see the one thing that you're supposed to interact with, but that's not necessarily a bad thing since it is a tool that you need to have and you will be using for most of the game. The level design is very linear, like every other dungeon in the game, but at least there are plenty of
Like
large
every
rooms
other Persona game. Don't just say every other dungeon in the game, dude.
your way through as opposed to literal hallways like later dungeons in the game. The boss fight against Demon Kamoshida isn't anything special, although it does showcase some of the problems with randomness in combat. He uses a move called Volleyball Assault, which can hit a party member anywhere between 1 and 5 times, meaning sometimes it's absolutely useless and does nothing to you, and other times it one-shots your character and basically forces you to restart the fight. This fight also sets the tone for
who are you speaking of? And number 2, isn't that a positive for Morgana that his luck can knock down an enemy? Why is it a negative here? Because it's a detriment to you?
And you act like this isn't in almost any JRPG you will ever encounter.
Honestly, it's a boss. Maybe the boss needs to be hard. Maybe you need to think about this. Maybe you need to dodge. Maybe you just go, oh crap, I guess Morgana's just dead.
in the whole game. Being a gimmick fight, you can't
Hold
win
on, let's
before
go
the
back.
game
I need to hear is every other boss in the game.
restart the fight. This fight also sets the tone for every other boss in the whole game.
Okay.
Being a gimmick fight, you can't win before the game gives you a prompt which will allow you to actually deal damage. In this case, you need to take the crown off Kamoshida's head. After beating Kamoshida in his own palace and taking his treasure, they go back to the real world and wait for him to have a change of heart, which he eventually does, apologizing for everything he's done to his students until now, and is sent to jail. Now we know that this heart change power is incredibly powerful, basically turning someone into a completely different person. Your crew has a celebration, which they fund by selling Kamoshida's treasure, which is his Olympic medal. And then you move on to try to find another target, after they realize they've gained some notoriety as the Phantom Thieves. The next main villain of the Phantom Thieves decide to go after is Madarame, a world-famous artist who is having an exhibit.
How is it that the palaces are getting less time than a confidant?
That was literally less than a confidant.
A confidant you don't even need to do.
Because he liked it. So he's just going, not mentioning the negatives or anything. He's just going synopsis. Oh, Kamoshida was super good. And the bosses indicate how the rest of the bosses are going to be fought.
In town. This is where you're introduced to Yusuke, the next person to join the party. But the way that he's brought into your group and Madarame's introduction are both really messy. After having taken down Kamoshida, Morgana teaches you about mementos, the public's collective unconscious, which is like a palace but does not have a single owner and takes the shape of a subway with tons of underground floors. This is also where you're introduced to mementos requests, by changing the heart of a guy who was stalking a former girlfriend. Upon changing his heart, he reveals that he used to be a student for a famous painter, Madarame, but that Madarame just used his pupils to make art for him so he could take all the credit, money, and fame. Then he asks you to look into him, and then our party immediately forgets all about him and doesn't actually follow up on this at all. Instead, a
Follow up in what way?
Yes.
They changed his heart.
And also, exams. They're very important for students. And can we go back just a little bit? 7 days. Whatever.
Instead, a convoluted series of events happens which results in the
Convoluted,
party
of
meeting
course.
Yusuke, who's Madarame's only pupil along the way. Yusuke finds Anne by randomly seeing her exit a subway station in the middle of the city while in a
How's that convoluted? He got inspiration by a fake.
Madarame chases her across multiple subway lines somehow and then talks to her
Pause.
about
No. On goes, I feel like somebody's been watching me for days. I remember this. You're just leaving that out.
immediately taken in by her beauty and needs her to be his model so he can paint her. He asks you to come to the exhibition, which you do, and there Yusuke asks Anne to model once again. Meanwhile, Ryuichi hears more rumors about Madarame being bad and decides to use Anne as a cover to look into Madarame's house. At Madarame's home, you ask Yusuke about the rumors surrounding Madarame, but he doesn't answer, and while leaving you happen to notice that the Metaverse navigation app picks up on something there. You already have the keywords of Madarame and shack, so you guess that he probably thinks of it as a museum and get a hit. Morgana also mentions that one of the keywords is plagiarism, but this doesn't make sense with the established rules that you need the 3 keywords of being the person, the place, and how they view it. And of course, no one comments on this at all. It's annoying how convenient this whole thing is. The main character...
No. With Kamoshida, keyword was also pervert. I remember that. It was Kamoshida, teacher, pervert, and castle. You're wrong.
Whole thing is. The main characters already had a perfectly good reason to go after Madarame from the mementos target, revealing Madarame's attitude towards his pupils. But the game kind of just ignores that in favor of having Yusuke approach Anne and having that be the way they get interested in Madarame instead. Coincidences can happen, but how lucky is it that only days after being told
literally 7 days is a problem for him. When they have exams.
How lucky is it that
Pause. And also, they have an in with Kamoshida. So you can go, okay, they know Kamoshida, they know how to get to him, blah, blah, blah. They need an in with Madarame.
He's a famous artist.
He's how do you get close to that dude? It's very lucky that Yusuke, yes, he's an eccentric dude that takes an interest in An. Absolutely, that's a convenience. But
how would they do it without
yes
that? Being high school students.
Days after being told about Madarame from the former pupil, you so happen to be approached by Madarame's only current student, who is literally the only person in the world who could have access to Madarame's house. And that he just so happened to see Anne for the first time today.
Nope, stalking her for a good amount of time. Literally said in the game. But then we can't trust this dude to pronounce An's name right.
Was so taken by her beauty that he decides to chase her on foot and asks her to be his model. This entire scenario is contrived as shit. It's hard to understand why that's even in the game when they already had an in to target.
They had an in to target him, but how do they get to him? Here's something right now. Pick a famous artist and go to them. You, person. You speaking this. I don't even remember his name at this point. It's been so long.
Cvit?
Something like that. Just Google any famous artist that's alive right now and go to them.
Doesn't even have to be a famous artist, famous person.
And just go to them.
Just go to them.
And see what happens. See if you can get in their house.
See if you can learn more about them. See if you can ask them about wrongdoings.
See what happens.
See what happens.
Madarame because of his former pupil and all the internet rumors surrounding him. Anne was already interested in going to Madarame's art exhibition anyway, so Yusuke could have easily been introduced there by having seen Anne and approaching her to talk about his teacher's art. In Madarame's palace, you see paintings of his past pupils, including Yusuke and the mementos.
But again, he's talking about it could have been done there, but he wants her to model for him because he saw her randomly in the streets. So then he starts following her, which speaks to his eccentricities.
And what is gained or lost by speaking with her in the museum?
Because it's more organic. What happens if she didn't go?
About his teacher's art. In Madarame's palace,
he offers a direct invitation going, I want you to be there, gives them tickets and whatnot.
About his teacher's art. In Madarame's palace, you see paintings of his past pupils, including Yusuke and the mementos target who asked you to look into Madarame. But even though that one of the keywords was apparently plagiarism, no one on your team can put 2 and 2 together, and they all just wonder about what these paintings could possibly mean. Ryuji even says, dude, I don't get it. After looking around more, you leave the palace.
Yes, why are these people here? That's an completely understandable. They are still very inexperienced. They have one mission under their belt. And it was a dude that they knew. Now it's a bunch of people sitting up here in an art museum. So it's just like, are they friends, family? Did they plagiarize? There's questions to be asked here.
More, you leave the palace and use Anne's modeling excuse to go see Yusuke again to get more answers. But he continues to be hostile to you and says that he will report you to the police unless Anne becomes his nude model. You agree so you can get out of there and then decide as a group to go into Madarame's palace and change his heart for good. This is a fine reason to target him, but the main characters are disconnected from him a lot more than Kamoshida. And Frank,
duh, they don't know this famous artist.
Is everyone that they're supposed to target somebody that they know or that they slighted them directly in a very recent manner?
Doesn't make much sense of how hyped they are to take him down. Madarame is a considerably...
It's a famous dude that's doing wrong. They want their name to get out there. That's why they're hype. They have a direct line to somebody who's doing bad, somebody provably doing bad. No investigation needed, and they have a way to get to him directly, and they have a way to get into his house. Of course they're hype. Let's take him down quickly, build up our name.
Weaker villain than Kamoshida too. They barely cared about Madarame's past abused students, and they are too stupid to figure out that he's plagiarizing his students' work despite being literally spelled out to by Morgana. And even though Yusuke does become a main character later, the Phantom Thieves still have no attachment for him yet. The only reason they attack him is out of a nebulous sense of justice. But it's harder to care about him as much as the previous villain since he basically has no impact on the main character lives. Like Kamoshida's castle, Madarame's art museum also has pretty good theming.
He's a father figure to Yusuke. He's a main character. If we do not stop him, he will take us to jail. That is main impact on our main characters. It may not be as direct as Kamoshida, but it's still there.
See, Kamoshida isn't better of a villain because the stuff he does is more personal to the characters that we are and know. It's because he's just a really good villain. He's cartoonishly evil, but it's so believable because there are actual people out there like that. But, you know, he's a good character and everything. It has nothing to do with, it's because An is being hurt personally. No.
He's a painter who focused on classical Japanese style, so a lot of the shadows you fight are creatures from Japanese mythology and folklore, like the Niue.
Weren't you just talking about how Kamoshida's is like, unlike other people, you see it more in Kamoshida's?
And also, it's most of the personas in the Persona games are classical Japanese references.
Mythology and folklore, like the Niue, Inugami, and Kupa Tengu. The design and decoration is also well done, although the setting for an art museum means that most of the rooms barely differ outside of layout, since they're meant to display artwork, so the setting is a lot less varied compared to the different areas in the castle. The puzzles here are almost non-existent, with the main danger being that of running into security grid lasers, but the way that you get past them is by walking up and pressing the action button, or simply running at them and Joker will automatically dodge the lasers, making it kind of a worthless challenge. The main complication in this section of the dungeon comes from the only time Morgana's love of treasure actually affects something, where he tries to grab a golden pot and triggers a grid laser around the room, needing you to go around and disable it before moving on. After getting about halfway through the dungeon, you reach a dead end that can only be opened from the other side, and we're introduced to one of the worst mechanics in the game, the forced stop halfway through the dungeon. I hesitate to even call it a mechanic since it's only used 2 more times in the entire game, but this does nothing but slow down the gameplay and waste
2 more times in the entire game. Aren't there only 3 more dungeons?
1, 2, 3. I think there's 4.
Oh no, I forgot about Futaba. Oh, how could I?
player's time, forcing you
half
to
the
have to go out
time.
of
Half the other dungeons do this exact same thing.
and use another day to go back and finish it instead of allowing you to complete it all in one single go, so players can get back to the life sim aspect of Persona 5.
You can still do that. You just gotta go one more day to there.
Yes. This is no different than, hey, I want to meet up with An and build up a social link. Oh, it's not there yet. I got to spend a day building up the social link in order to build up, get up another rank.
That's like saying,
There's
you
no
know, because I got to build up my guts and my knowledge to talk to this person. It's just wasting my time.
No.
No, it's absolutely for padding. But still.
The way to get past the blockade is to go to Madarame's house and have him witness the entering of his padlocked room, so that the cognition of it being impenetrable changes. While that's not a terrible idea, it's weird that it only comes up 2 more times in the whole game. In this case, it seems obvious.
Out of... how many, dude?
4 dungeons, half the time.
Out of how many,
it
dude?
It happens again. And also, you can't get up, you can't reach Shido, so that's out. They're locked out hard, so you can't like, hey, open up the thing. Shido's dead, and same thing with Kaneshiro. What are you gonna do? Say open up your door to your club? There's no way to implement that, so they don't.
As a way to use to set up the funny comedic scene involving Anne and Yusuke.
It's very funny.
Yusuke only agreed to your team
I
leaving
loved
as
it.
if Anne became his nude model.
It's great.
So obviously, immediately after leaving his palace, Ryuji says the only way to get in is having Anne go nude, and Morgana emphatically agrees, despite Anne's repeated complaints and very clear discomfort. She eventually agrees for the sake of the mission, and all the guys get excited about this. Later in a text conversation when Anne asks again if she really has to go through with all this, you even have the option to send a text saying, "Strip for him, Anne." This whole
Another dialogue option that feels really out of character. It depends on the character you're presenting yourself as.
We don't know who this character is. Up until this point, he's maybe said 3 words.
Your options are usually serious, distant / mysterious, goofy, fish out of water. This is the only time you have an asshole option, unless this isn't supposed to be an apathetic option, which it doesn't read like it if it's not supposed to be.
I am 100% sure this is not the only time, and also that could be portrayed as goofy.
Scenario and situation are extremely tone deaf, considering the entirety of the previous arc was Anne being sexually harassed by someone in the position of power and was being blackmailed into having sex with the main villain, and when she declined, he then turned to her best friend, which then pushed her to attempt suicide in front of Anne. In the Kamoshida arc, Anne's growth and realization of her true self came specifically from when she decided to stand up for herself and not give in to Kamoshida's perverted demands, and she was disgusted at his cognition of her being a dumb bimbo in a bikini who flaunts herself all over him and agrees with everything he has to say. This wouldn't have really been an issue if it had been addressed at all, but the game completely ignores Anne's past, and when the time comes to meet...
It's not about ignoring her past, it's the only way they can get inside of this place to take this dude's heart. She's doing it for the mission.
And new modeling is a very legit way of art. It's bad, but you know, it's another thing.
Her uncomfortability, that's a real problem there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not about ignoring the past of what just happened.
And honestly, it was never an option. She was never gonna do it. It's just a way to get in there and to distract him.
Time comes to meet Yusuke, the scene is portrayed as a funny with the wacky anime hijinks music, even playing in the background throughout all of it. The joke of guys being perverted wanting to peep on their...
You've used wacky hijink music
during the Morgana stuff.
Wanting to peep on their friends while they change is a classic trope in anime, and it seems like they wanted to include this anime trope in their anime game, but no one thought about how...
No, I'm not using anime as a derogatory term here. It sure sounds like it. It certainly sounds like it. Maybe you're not, but it certainly sounds that way.
This event looks in context of everything that has happened to this character up until this point. The game up until now is trying to be a dark story about corruption in the unsavory parts of society.
Can you not have jokes? Can you not have some lighthearted moments?
One Piece.
Come on! Is it one or the other?
Like a teacher abusing their power, manipulating their students, and sexually harassing them. But it also wants to be a fun...
Yeah, and then when they went inside the palace, they went, ha, jokey joke stuff.
It can be both. That's a story. That's these characters. If they were all just serious, you'd be like, oh, this game is too dour. There's no lighthearted moments.
Their power, manipulating their students, and sexually harassing them. But it also wants to be a funny anime dating sim, which each on their own works perfectly fine, but together mix like oil and water.
Then why do you like Persona games?
I was just about to say that.
Dude,
it's all of them.
Now, this is the thing. I would not have a problem with this video, or as much of a problem with this video, if he said this was the exact same for Persona games, and I'm just using 5 because it came out the most recently to showcase the problems of the Persona games. But he went, Persona 3 and 4 are good games, this one sucks.
Yes, and it's the same. So that's the biggest problem.
Working completely against themselves, and the end result is a scene you can't help but feel is gross when remembering what just previously happened to this character, and is tonally out of place with everything the game has been up until this point. After this is all over, the party finds themselves confronted by Madarame inside his padlocked room, and after a reveal that he's been selling counterfeits of his own masterpiece, the Sayori, and Morgana and Yusuke use the navigation app to escape back to the palace. In the palace, Yusuke awakens his persona when confronted by Madarame's shadow, and he decides to join you on your adventures. The rest of the dungeon is pretty uneventful, with only one cool section in the middle where you get to go into massive paintings and warp into different paintings that are in the same hall, having to figure out how these paintings of different landscapes are connected. In the end of this dungeon, you're confronted by one of the worst bosses in the whole game, painting for Madarame. His whole deal is that he's split into 4 separate pictures, but half heals from magic damage and half heals from physical damage. So you can't use any AoE attacks, and as if that wasn't enough, you have to—
Oh no! I can't just spam my big old hit everything attack.
It's almost like you have to use strategy instead of just big meat fisting this. This is one of the worst in the game.
What happened to your perfect team? I guess it's not gonna work here, huh?
Dude, is this dude legit going, I can't just spam an all-out attack for everybody?
He attacks, and as if that wasn't enough, you have to kill all 4 parts of him 3 different times, and the last 2 times require you to kill them within a few turns of each other, or else they come back at full health. So you need to spread your damage thin to get every part low enough to knock them all out at the end of a turn. It's just a long, boring fight that requires a lot of luck to dodge his attacks and not get hit by weak elements since you need to endure for so long. After the fight, you leave.
You suck.
Yes. Absolutely.
I never died on that fight.
Nope.
Killed. Easy mode.
It's ridiculous. Why? That's.
And take back his treasure, which is the unedited Sayori made by Yusuke's mom. It's only now that you share contact information with Yusuke and he joins the Phantom Thieves group chat. So every time you've been meeting up until now, they've had no way to contact Yusuke. So I like to imagine that every day Yusuke just sits.
He got An's number when he invited her to the exhibit.
The train station until dark and realizes that nobody's showing up today to go into the palace. Madarame then has his big public confession later on, proving once again that your powers work. While Yusuke's introduction to the party is pretty shit and incredibly contrived, his integration to the party at the end of the Madarame arc is incredible. After spending a night at LeBlanc with you, we get one of the best scenes in the game in a conversation between Yusuke and Sojiro. Yusuke comes to the conclusion that he's going to live in the school's dorms, despite Sojiro offering him to let him stay at the shop. And when asked why, he talks about how he's realized to the extent of what he doesn't understand when it comes to people, and that if he wants to depict people better in his art, he needs to go study and interact with them more. He starts on this right away by asking Sojiro why he took in Joker in the first place, and is perplexed by the answer that Sojiro is simply reminded of his older self, and values the consideration of others highly. Sojiro even says that Madarame must have felt something for Yusuke outside of his talent, and Yusuke reveals that despite everything that's happened, he cannot hate him from the depths of his heart either. If this rings a bell, it's because this realization is the entire basis of Yusuke's confidant. This scene sets up all of the hangups that Yusuke has that have a direct impact on him, and his S-Link is about helping him work through them so that he can grow as a person and an artist. This exchange seems to weigh heavily on Yusuke, and this scene is treated with a seriousness that is uncharacteristic of him. This part is what makes his confidant so good, since it sets the stage for what exactly he needs to work on, and displays how conflicted he is when it comes to his old mentor, who he understands was a terrible person.
Holy, you're still talking!
It's a bit long.
This is so long-winded, holy.
When it comes to his old mentor, who he understands was a terrible person, but he can't help but empathize and love him anyways. This is also displayed in many times Yusuke refers to Madarame as sensei before correcting himself. Other than Haru, no other character in their confidant is set up as well as Yusuke. Ryuji and Makoto all happen to stumble onto the track team, Mika and Aika respectively, and that sets them on a path, but they never had a concrete goal or drive to improve.
He stumbles upon the track team in the track field
that he used to be part of.
Maki is at a modeling shoot where An is a model.
And they do know each other.
Makoto, there's a student who's working over here at a potential sex shop. No, that's not a sex shop. It's just a normal shop. But hey, I see that dumb panda bear thing that you've got. I like that thing too. Makes sense.
Before then, with Yusuke settled, the Phantom Thieves once again start their look for the next target. In the third part of the game, we increase our roster once more, this time adding Makoto, and going after Kanashiro, a rich mafia boss.
Okay, I can't do anymore.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
Yeah,
I can't. I'm mummifying. He's draining my moisture.
Bro, this is ridiculous. He is crocking it.
This is a very bad video. I cannot believe how poorly constructed this video is. I cannot believe how biased he is against this game.
And again, I would have no problem with it if he said all Persona games are like this.
But he's just like, Kamoshida's fantastic, and then he just starts lambasting Madarame's part. You have a clear bias. You mention like one negative thing for Kamoshida, and then you just instantly go contrived.
When it's something that you like, it's instantly good. And when it's something you don't like, it's instantly bad. We just recorded something about Kill la Kill and Higurashi. And I went, I don't like Kill la Kill, but I understand why people like it. And I understand the quality of it, of what it is. You don't have to look at something and go, I don't like it, therefore bad.
I don't like and bad are two totally separate things. You can explain perfectly why you don't like it, why it doesn't speak to you, why you don't get it. That's all fine and well and good. But you don't conflate the I don't like into bad. Because there are things that I don't like that are good, and there are things that I do like that are bad. And you're just like, I don't like and bad because I don't like it, and this is stupid. Why is it stupid? Because it's stupid because they didn't do this. But they did do this over here. Yeah, that's stupid too because they didn't do this.
But they did it over there too. Yeah, but I like that, so it's good. It was implemented well here because I like it, so it good.
This is a very draining video.
Dude, it's so tired because he just keeps talking.
It's droning.
There's no breath.
I'm glad that we're hitting this at like episode 20 or so, because if this was
20
like,
exactly.
This was early, I'd be like, wow, Revisited is not fun.
But the thing is, we've had 19 videos of straight fun, and this one, dude, every time we come to it, I just get a sinking feeling.
Yes.
Other Revisiteds, I would be like, all right, can't wait to start the next part of that. Can't wait to get to this. Can't wait to talk about this.
We'll go through videos like, oh, let's do this. Oh man, I wonder what its arguments are gonna be. We're excited going in, and you can hear the excited in our voice, but we're just like, that's not what happened. And we'll get up every now and again, but this is a very, very difficult one.
Dude, this is so hard. Revisited is like the easiest thing in the world.
It's insane.
We'll do 4 hours like it's nothing. I was drained after a single hour of this. I've never had that happen with a Revisited.
This is a very, very bad video. It's not fun bad either. This isn't bad movie day bad where you can talk about, hey, let's watch the Hawk movie and just rag on it, or The Room or something.
This isn't a Nux-Taku video where it's just like, you aren't even trying, kid. You're just throwing Fate out there like 70,000 times and theme and thematic. Like, you don't even care, and it's hilarious.
We're just sitting here just watching and just going, wow, this is just bad, and there's not too much to talk about because it's just like singularly, focusedly bad, and you're just not missing stuff and just not bringing up stuff. And
this is a 4-hour movie of an office, and you're just going, here's this person doing their job at the office. Here's that person doing their job at the office. And it's just 4 hours of people interacting in the office with no real hijinks or anything. And then you got the guy trying to throw out jokes, but he just sucks. And it's just 4 hours of sitting in a theater like that. Your legs are getting tired by 40 minutes in.
It's just when you're at work and you go, okay, I got 8 hours. And then you get 1 hour in and you go, okay, I just got to do that again 7 times. And then you get 4 hours in, like, okay, I just did 4 hours. I can do another 4 hours easy. And you're just counting down the seconds.
You hit that 99 minutes. I'm out of the triple digits of minutes.
And at a certain point, you're just like, I'm not even going to look at the clock anymore. And it's just always just back there. It's just this is the draining thing that's just omnipresent.
This is the clock watching of Revisited. This video is terrible.
I'm just like, I'm struggling to find some stuff to say, but he's between the just synopsises and just the complete and total bullshit. I'm like, well, what? Just how he zoomed in so close to the Morgana thing and didn't even show the date. It's just like, whoa, dude, what are you doing here?
Yeah, we don't even know if that was when Joker first brought up Shido, and he's just like, well, I don't really care what happened with Shido.
Before, during, after.
We don't know when that was.
We don't know. So that's just so disingenuous. And I hate disingenuity. I hate people being disingenuous
there you go.
So much. And this is just so much of that, just going, this does this wrong. Like the romance thing happens in the other Persona games.
It's just
it's a problem here.
When people will try to slag off on Revisited as a concept where it's just like us watching video and you could have cut this down if you had done it like a typical video, but we could mold what they're saying into anything we want to say to counter it. You're getting their entire video to see if we're misrepresenting anything that's said there. So that's That's basically what this is. You can always misrepresent something if you're editing it a certain way. I could do the complete voiceover stuff of every second of this video and talk about how good it is as opposed to how bad it is. Cause it's edited in a way that you can do that anyway. This is terrible. I hate this.
This is, and I'm sitting there just like, we got to make something below -10 because this does not deserve to be with the other ones.
Dude, that's what I'm saying.
It makes those other ones just seem like a shining star, and I hate it. But I was the one that said we can't go any lower.
But it feels like...
But it's going to have to be like -10 plus or something.
You know what? This should be in like a Hall of Fame.
This has to be. Because this is a horrible video. This is a really, really bad video.
This will be the first inductee of the Hall of Shame of Revisiting.
Man.
Because this is... I know we keep repeating ourselves with how bad this video is, but it is really, really, really not good.
And the biggest problem is we're not having fun, so the jokes don't come. So we can't like get that endorphin rush of, hey, we're doing something fun, and it's just like, no, dude, that's not what happened.
You've never played Portal 2, but I'm sure you've seen people play Portal 2. It's like when Wheatley was like having you solve tests, and it's just like, yes, that's the feeling, and then you do it again, it's just like, I'm not getting that. What's going on here? I'm not getting that same feeling. And that's where we're at right now. And we're going to get that feeling with the very next one, whatever it is.
100%.
But this is just not it. This ain't it, Chief.
And we're going to continue it because I got to know.
Dude, we're barely halfway through with it.
Barely
halfway through.
He's got, 4 more palaces. The ending, conclusion.
The confidence, it's what did it.
Yeah.
It drained all energy.
I was up for the whole battle system ban. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is what it's going to be. Then I saw that time length of confidence. I'm like, oh, boy. Oh, no.
Okay, so that's it for tonight. I don't know. I just don't know.